Again, guys, welcome back to the episode Learning League, episode 23, the first blow. Really quickly, I didn't get to announce this before we went actually. It was the awesome people at D-esports. They were covering out the event. They did an awesome job. Check them out at d-esports.com. But also check out the sponsors below: XMG, Traton, Mad Cats, BenQ, and the one, the only Antac. But other than that, it's been a really interesting weekend. I mean, I'm going to be linking the VODs and stuff like that. I think I linked it in the articles, but I'll link it again over in the YouTube channel as well. But I would suggest to say, if you're a stat nerd like me, or if you're like everybody else over in the world that, wants to know, hey, how did they get up ahead? Hey, how did this happen? And stuff like that. And hey, what's the win percentage of Ezreal since he was played in every game? You can check it out over at elobuff.com. I mean, every game, Ezreal. Really? I mean, it's granted, Ezreal's a really good champion, but Ezreal. Anyway, yeah, so do check out elobuff.com. Just a little tangent right there. But overall, I mean, it'll tell you more about what's happened in the game, what's, Alex Ish's record over there. You can see the bottom, or you can't see in the bottom right, but you can see it right now. Like, all the players as well, and then, what kind of styles and builds that they all do and stuff like that. You can also check it out over on lolking.net. I think they did some other graphs, like how many towers were taken and stuff like that. But overall, both sites very useful for actually coverage of the games. So definitely elobuff, you're going to see it come out, and this is actually a free part since they do events and stuff like that. This is a free part for them. It is a pay site, but you can go do whatever you want to do with that. Anyway, going back to the first part into the second part. First part, we talked about the awesome teams of both Invictus Gaming and Azubu Frost. Azubu Frost ultimately doing some work over on Invictus Gaming in the end, and we do see Invictus Gaming kind of actually come out of it. Barely come out of it in the group stage. But now they are over into the playoff stage. We're talking about day 2. And we're talking about Moscow 5, everyone's favorite, and Invictus Gaming. Truthfully, sorry, this is a side note, Moscow 5 is my favorite of the EU teams in general, just because they play such really great play. My favorite team is actually Team Solomid. I'm a Baylife fanboy, stuff like that. Because, they taught me the game, and they kind of grew me up into where I am right now, which is not really the greatest, but it's decent. But Moscow 5 is one of the best teams I've seen, and when they did this picks and bans little section, it's a really cute thing as well. So really quickly, Moscow 5, IG, I mean, both are pretty aggressive teams. That was just the nation, that was just the backbone, the back filler of the games. Moscow 5, also with aggressiveness, can actually outplay teams, and you saw it probably over in was it Gamescom and stuff like that. You probably saw it over at actually Season 2 regionals for the EU side as well, and they thought of some major really crazy things. I think they played Zillion over there. They played a little bit of Evelyn as well, but in general they play to the metas, and then they break the metas. Right now, what we're seeing the bans of picks, I mean, Jace is a really standard ban, Alistar is a really standard ban. Maokai for IG, or for all the Asian teams right now, is a really high pick because there's a lot of control in the jungle. There's a lot of control with that Maokai / the Skarner pick as well as I think those are the two that are very generally used as like the big kind of just split pusher, stuff like that. And Shen as well. Sorry, I just saw the Shen right there. I was like, oh, there, good. But there's 3 junglers pretty much really secure that, you want to control the jungle, you want to push as hard as you can, and you want to get that early game to that mid game status that you can't really be stopped in the late game. And that is kind of the Asian kind of meta, like right now. You want to earn that early game and destroy that mid game so that there is no chance of the late game. Kind of the reason why CLG EU kind of made it to the Asian finals was because that's kind of the situation that the meta was in Korea. Just saying. And you know, with Masco 5 doing all that scouting and stuff like that, but doing enough to understand that the meta is what it is, they really outsmarted everybody, literally. They outsmarted even like people that, you know, have been playing with them all the time, CLGU, stuff like that, that they made this comp really, really viable, and they made this comp work out so hard that you wouldn't have actually thought of it, period. Like, there's no way there's no way that Moscow 5's comp, like, I would have guessed. I mean, I could guess the Evelyn because Evelyn is a really high contested pick in the agency and slash in the scene right now. But the picks coming up right after that is just like, wow, this is amazement. It's just because the next pick that you're going to see from Moscow 5 BenQ is the Zinzao pick. That's how I call him, sorry, I don't actually know how to say his name correctly. But Zinzao is picked because there's about one disable right now that is shown on the screen for IG. IG only has Shen to actually counteract a Zinzao pick, kinda. Maybe now with the petrifying case of Cassiopeia, maybe two. It's just dependent. And with that Zinzao pick, that is just an all-in pick, like Leona and stuff like that. But it's also a really, really strong pick to disrupt pretty much the team fight overall in general for IG or anyone. And with that comp that M5 makes in the beginning, it really like says, oh, well, I have two things. I have to protect my beginning game because their beginning game is so much stronger. They have Cassiopeia, they have Ezreal, they have Shen. Okay. And then we say, okay, well, their beginning game is strong. What can we do to counteract their beginning game, their early game? We make a game out of it where this early game is pretty much, we survive for 10 minutes, we win the game throughout the whole time. And that is what they did for this mid to late game. And for both games, if you want to check out the VODs, I'll put a shit up again. But for both games, Moscow 5 really said, oh, well, aggressive playstyles work really aggressively and really work out well if you can control the game from the get-go. If you can mitigate that early game expression or early game, you know, dominance, you can really, really control a game in the mid game to the late game. It's like, just compared to like StarCraft 2 or maybe, yeah, it's just like StarCraft 2. You bunker rush. You set up the bunker rush to kind of control that early game status. To go to that mid game, you can switch to whatever you want and everything into that mid game, but you still have that expression that you use a little bit of minerals in the beginning so that you can own that mid game really, really strongly. While if you have a pretty good defense of a bunker rush per se, you do, you know, you kind of deny that early game dominance per se. I mean, you still get hurt by it, but you get denied that early game dominance, and that mid game is really, really iffy now because that person had to invest so much in that early game and such like that. And that's just the same thing for bans of picks for League of Legends. I mean, if you show that you want to show that early aggression and stuff like that, like right now, like I just skipped to the game because, I mean, the game's kind of there. But if you show that dominance in the early game and you kind of just mitigate it to a little bit of a loss, you can turn the tide so easily for a game that when you hit that mid-game, late game status, it's like deflating for, well, especially for IG's state, for Invictus Gaming state. It's very deflating that you can't do anything really, because literally you're gonna lose no matter what. I mean, you can outplay, and that's something that you would kind of hope for. That's why, you know, people that say Moscow 5 is Moscow 5, they can't be stopped because they're just really, really strong on every level of the game, and they have really, really strong afterthoughts, pretty much, of the game, even before it starts. But if you're banking on having them have a mistake, you're really banking on nothing, because there's no way, no chance. I mean, yeah, they're humans, so there's a possibility. There's no chance that M5 will like give up any mistakes like that. Other than when you saw CLGU went out against M5, because M5, unfortunately for that, didn't really think about some things per se in one matchup that they did. But in general, like you have these world teams have that really strong synergy and really strong communication that if they do take an advantage, they hold that advantage really well throughout the game. And that is what M5 does to Invictus Gaming pretty much from the beginning go. But again, we're gonna go through how does each team get ahead because the matchup is still pretty strong for IG as well. IG really needs to control that early game, and that's what they're doing right now. And that's pretty much what IG was going for. They need to push as hard as they can, and they need to deny as much time as they can so that they could actually just snowball to win and pretty much kill out. And IG is playing super aggressively, and that's kind of what you would need to do against this team, which is really interesting per se because you don't know how Xin Zhao kind of reacts with a Lee Sin on top of a Evelyn and such like that. But it's very difficult to say that this is actually a really strong kind of push that they're going to be doing through this. We do see Diamond make this awesome play go in Safeguard and trying to save out his life, while IG almost certainly were trying to get that kill onto Diamond, but Diamond said, no, not going to happen. And in general, for Moscow 5, how did they have to get ahead? Well, they had to farm, and again, lane swaps that happened again, 2v1 top, 1v2 bot. You need to farm up as much as you can. You need to get the gold so that you can be ahead of your lane partner, per se for Darien and PDD. I mean, they had to have pretty much the same CS and then try to get ahead in that little instance. Darien is super far behind though, and PDD is pretty far ahead. PDD is pretty far ahead. And in general, Darien just needs to keep up with the CS as much as he can, while Alexish and Zatai, both in the middle, just have to keep on harassing each other down. And the only problem is with Zatai, he actually has to control Evelyn, and if Evelyn is ever missing, it just really hurts IG's just vision in general, because even with sight wards, you can't really see a Evelyn that is stealthed. And once an Evelyn is stuffed, well, I would say he is in every lane, and that is kind of the misdemeanor of stealth champions. I mean, that's what you see with Rengar right now. Like, literally, it puts a unnecessary backbone to yourself that you have to watch out for a stealth champion through each lane. And if you don't know where, say, Rengar is in the bush or something like that, and he's stealthed and he's just gone, or if Alex Ish with Evelyn is off into top lane or bottom lane, you actually wouldn't know which lane he would be in. And it's really tough on any team, literally, when a stealth champion comes in and says, well, I'm here and you're not ready, and then you can't do anything about it. And it really hurts Victor's Gaming in this instance, where they want to control the early game, which they are doing super well. But once Alex Itch starts roaming, it's like, oh, where are they? Where is everybody? And it really does hurt the team of Invictus Gaming in that middle game to that late game. So right now, we have a little interesting instance. It's 8 minutes in the game. Invictus Gaming is up about 1k, 2k gold ahead. A lot of people, I think even Riveton Freak were like kind of writing off M5 at this point, because they brought out Xin Zhao, not a very competitive player. And they brought out Alex Itch, but Alex Itch is down 1 kill, plus he's down so much CS and stuff like that. I would never write out team until about probably a 15-minute, 20-minute game where it is probably like 15 or 20 kills up. That's probably the only time I would write off a game or a team. Otherwise, this is a really interesting comp, and things work to the meta, but this is also a comp that's kind of breaking the meta as well. I mean, Evelyn, again, to the Western world, hasn't been seen so much. Xin Zhao to the Western world has never been seen so much in competitive play at all. So like, when you have those two characters on top in the same team, it's like, well, what are they thinking? Are they like serious about this game and stuff like that? And that's what most Westerners would have thought, and most probably Eastern Europeans would have thought as well. Even the Asian teams would have thought like that as well. But Moscow 5 was just ahead of the learning curve, and they really got it out on to pretty much everybody in the world, saying, Oh yeah, we know this game. We pick OP champions. That's what Alex said, right? We pick OP champions and win, and that is pretty much how it worked out for M5. And literally, yeah, for both games that you see, their early games weren't that great. Their early games were actually putrid. They were just pretty awful. But their mid game to late game, they just had so much control and so much dominance that it really, really was so one-sided, and Invictus Gaming could not do anything about it. So yeah, I mean, Moscow 5, I would say, has the best chance of winning Season 2 in general, just because they are just ahead of the curve on everybody, literally everybody, at least in team count per se. They have the pretty good communication to keep up with each other, and they have the skills to either own up the early game or own up the mid game to late game, or vice versa, secure that early game, hit that mid game aggression, and make sure that late game doesn't really falter. For Invictus Gaming, this perspective, yes, they did very awesome. They did great during the group stage, and they won 2-1. For their perspective, they did such a great job trying to earn up those early games for both games for Invictus Gaming versus M5. But I mean, they're a new team. They're a newer team than most of the teams that are Moscow 5 has been together pretty much for what, a year and a half. No, actually, they've been together even since WCG as well. Shoot. But Invictus Gaming, they've changed their lineup a few times, as well as try to do some interesting stuff with their team. I mean, PDD again, new player for the team. They also had kids just go down from top lane to bottom lane, and that's always different as well. So in general, Invictus Gaming, I feel like Season 3 they're going to make a really strong stand. And most of the teams that are actually out of the tournament, and TSM, stuff like that as well, they're making a strong stand for Season 3. But again, if Moscow 5 wins Season 2 super handily and take out all the competition, I would say it's going to be really tough for them not to actually win out Season 3 if they keep up playing this style of League of Legends and playing this ahead of a lot of teams. Overall, in general, that is going to be the episode of 23, the first blow, and it has been L3IRD, the bird, getting in some words with you all again, and appreciative thanks goes to all the people in Divinity Esports, D-esports.com. You can go check them out over on the website. I just heard that they announced that headset winner frequency, or the Mad Catz frequency headset winner on there, so do check that out. We won. Congratulations for you to win that little headset right over there. But other than that, thank you to the sponsors as well: Antec, Triton, BenQ, Mad Catz, and the one, the only XMG. Over in the bottom right, you can see all those little things with that Definitive Esports logo. But other than that, as well, check out all the shows that happen throughout the week: Gimbal Arn, Chobo to Gosu, and all the CSGO tournament live coverage that James Banks has been on as well. But other than that, from me to you, to me, to you, to you to me, sorry about that, it has been L3RD, and I am going to